Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Christmas edition of Holy Heretics.
Happy holidays!
Yay! I have my Happy Birthday Jesus ugly sweater on. It must be the holiday season.
It must be. Mine is just a red sweater.
Yeah. But we also have twinkle lights that I had to unknot from last year. And boy, isn't that an illustration for a sermon on pastoral ministry of unknotting the Christmas lights.
I'm just trying real hard not to roll my eyes at you.
Not trying not to cry.
Oh, man. So we're recording this. It's the tail end of November. This upcoming Sunday is going to be the first Sunday in Advent. A big thing about Advent is not all Christians celebrate it or even use the liturgical calendar. So we want to talk about that a little bit. Do you first explain to us what the liturgical calendar is?
Yeah. It's fairly simple. It's a cycle, 3-year cycle of readings for Sundays. And it can be as extensive as a Hebrew Bible, a Psalms, an epistle, and a gospel. Or you can just use a gospel. I usually just read a gospel, but you could use any of them. And so that's called the Revised Common Lectionary. There's 1,000 different types of lectionaries, but that would be the most common.
Yeah, and the liturgical calendar moves in a yearly cycle where about half of the liturgical calendar, so half of the 52 Sundays in a year, cover Jesus's life. So you think Advent, Christmas, through Easter, through Pentecost, really, is Jesus's earthly ministry. So that's December through usually the end of May, beginning of June, is Jesus' life and ministry. And then the rest is ordinary time, or is usually the story of God's people, is a good way to think about
That's
that.
our off time. Because for 6 months, pastors just white knuckle it from November through May.
So that's what the liturgical calendar and all of that. I personally love Advent. It is the time before Christmas, which is very difficult, this differentiation we have between the calendar of the world, the worldly calendar as we want to call it, where Christmas starts as soon as Halloween ends. There's a brief break for Thanksgiving in between there.
Yeah.
But there's that commercial Christmas, that Santa Claus, all that stuff. But then there's liturgical calendar. There's Advent, which is the season of preparation for Jesus's coming, for Jesus's birth on Christmas Day. So that's a whole different thing. But Advent is also the start of the liturgical calendar. It's interesting that the new year for the church starts in December as opposed to January for the secular world. So again, just differences there.
Yeah. I like Advent because it's like practicing a pause. If you follow it, if you jump from Halloween to Christmas, it's like just skip over Thanksgiving and all the other crap in between.
Yeah, who cares about the 12 days of Christmas? We've got months of Christmas.
Yeah. It reminds me of Walter Brueggemann's book about Sabbath being resistance. Of I'm going to take this time to pause. Which for clergy, especially if you follow the calendar and the lectionary, isn't really a time of pause. It's a time of getting ready for Christmas, because usually there's 100 different things that we're working on, and the church committees are working on, and then we're trying to work on ourselves and have families and all this other stuff. It can be a real Griswold feeling Christmas by the time you get there.
Yeah.
But I like, just going back to the lectionary, I like using the lectionary because a lot of my clergy friends use the lectionary, and then when we're all talking about the same thing, we can throw ideas around. And then I just started going to a lectionary group at St. John's, downtown Dayton, where there are Lutherans and Methodists and UCCers, and we get together and talk about what the lectionary will be the next Sunday, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So the holidays, boy, they're happy days, but they are stressful days. I was just telling Faith, I just got back from therapy, so I have all of this stuff is fresh in my mind, and boy, is there a lot of stress around the holidays. Like we said with Advent is like a period of rest, period of pause. One might say Sabbath, if you were so inclined. Ooh. where you can
Church word.
you can stop and appreciate a little bit. Me, I just got off of like almost a straight week of just going for the last holiday with very little pause time in between things. And so now I'm like fried and trying to find that Sabbath. And I think my Sabbath this week is going to be tomorrow. I have nothing. I have nothing planned tomorrow. Please, nobody die or get married tomorrow. At least for my congregation, I really need the day off.
At least for
I need
my
at
congregation.
least need that off. Yeah. What do you think about that? You have little ones. I don't have any
Yeah.
kids yet, but
Holiday stress. So a big part, Christmas isn't a big stressful holiday in our house. Part of that is my husband and I are both not big gift givers. It's not our love language in which we give or receive love. So that component that I think drives a lot of people's stress, which is like the commercialism, the I have to buy, I have to produce, I have to earn enough money to buy the big enough, good enough, next, whatever, Tickle Me Elmo, iPhone, whatever thing that people need to get for their kids. Trey, my husband, don't really feed into that because it's never been super important to us. But now that we have kids and they're getting a little bit older, we feel like we have to like up our gift giving game a little bit. Like we also don't want our kids to be like, what do you mean you got like X, Y, and Z for Christmas? Mom gives us like a thing of bubble bath or whatever. Because like that's what I would do when my kids were really little. Because like a 2-year-old doesn't care what is wrapped under the tree. I would just wrap stuff that we needed to get anyway. You know, bubble bath, baby lotion, that type of stuff. And they're like, cool, we love this. Because they have no idea that they were going to get it one way or the other. But now, as our kids are starting to get older, our oldest is 4, not wanting them to become really big consumers, which this is also part of the countercultural beliefs that we hold as inherent to Christianity, and not that consumerism is not an inherently Christian value. Consumerism is not an inherently Christian value, which is so hard with how Christmas is packaged.
Oh, yes.
Now, in America, in this Ohio, probably North America, but our specific context.
Absolutely.
I don't let it stress us out too much. We decorate what we decorate. We do the cookies and stuff like that because we like to bake. We do presents, but we don't spend hundreds of dollars on presents the way some people do. So I think that diminishes a lot of our holiday stress. Where more of our holiday stress comes from is that being part of blended families who are, adult child of parents who have divorced and trying to split time that way. Having, my husband is originally from the West Coast, so being like, all right, can we fly home to spend any time with your side of the family this year? Those are more of our sources of stress than I think some of our other more common ones. Not that other folks don't have those similar struggles, but it's more of how can we see all of our family? Can we afford to see all of our family? And how do we split time fairly amongst
especially
everyone?
when they're that far apart.
Yeah.
Wow. Our stress, since we don't have kids, we can splurge on each other. It's fun. But our stress comes from hosting. We host. So normally my wife Anastasia and I host Thanksgiving here. Mm-hmm. But this year we had it in Youngstown. So we had to drive to Youngstown, and I got to go to Pittsburgh and visit one of my best friend, and his baby's had a baby, and it was a fantastic time. It's just a lot. But anyway, and we usually have Christmas at her sister's house, and her sister lives in this beautiful log cabin, and it's like a Thomas Kincaid painting, there's the giant Christmas tree, and there's dogs, and everybody, blah, blah, blah. It's just lovely. But this year, we're hosting Christmas. That's a little stressful, but at the same time, our families are really cool in that we don't have to do it on Christmas. So last year we did it the weekend after, and that worked really well for everyone. One of my sister-in-laws, she's a church musician, so Christmas is tough. Christmas is tough for me, so we're going to have it here the weekend after. And that's nice because it's like There's no real unknown variables there. I know who's coming. It's my house. If I get overwhelmed, I can just dip and go on a walk. Very nice. So I'm hoping it's not too bad. But for a lot of people, it is. Especially with that. Now you take all of that, and then you like put the big cherry on top of church. And it's okay, now church is here too. And while my wife and I go to a church, that's lovely. And we don't really have a blended family. We're both members of the same congregation and everything. A lot of people have churches that don't accept them, or they're going to be going to families' churches who don't accept them for XYZ reasons. There's a plethora of them. And that can cause a bunch of stress.
Or you have the C&E crowd, right? The Christmas and Easter crowd is going to emerge for one of their biannual outings. So there's also pressure on the regular folks of a local congregation to make sure everything looks just and everything's just right. And it's got to be this best foot forward, which this is one of the highest holy days in the Christian year. Whether you follow the liturgical calendar or not, all Christians celebrate Christmas.
Yep.
Like this is a thing that we all do.
Christmas and Easter.
But there's a lot of pressure we put on ourselves to be perfect for Christmas.
Absolutely. It is!
Performance culture.
Consumer culture, like we were talking about earlier. Like, let's give them a show, baby.
Yeah. Let's give them a show. But there's part of that I love. So I cut a lot of my ministerial teeth in Christian education. And if nothing else, it is the kids' time to shine when it comes around to Christmas. You've got Christmas pageants, you've got nativities, you've got all these other things that the kids are doing, either like service projects, doing Christmas shopping for other kids in the community, or there's a million things that go on that are really cool. And I don't want to make fun of any of that stuff because I absolutely love a Christmas nativity with like kids dressed up as angels and donkeys and little
halos.
Oh yeah, I love it. I want it. My soul yearns for it. I love it. And I think there is something really important that at the root of that most people miss, because it's they're cute and we love watching the kids do things. We like watching the kids perform for the church, which is another
whole other
weird dynamic. Thing. But if you look into like teaching pedagogy, there is not a better way to teach a story than to have kids act it out. And having kids act out the Christmas story, this is why it's one of the most known stories in the Bible, one of the most biblically literate stories that we have across our culture, because even folks who do not attend church regularly will come out of the woodwork on Christmas or come out of the woodwork on Easter, and being able to slap a dad's old bathrobe on a kid and have him play Joseph allows people to, I think, take in that Christmas story in a different way that I think is often overlooked by the adults in the congregation, that they undersell the teaching value of that to the next generation of believers, which is something I'm super passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's dope. So, speaking of the nativities, we have a nativity going on at my church. It's a really cool program. It's one of the reasons why I really hope to get called by this church when I applied there. So during COVID, they decided to have the Christmas Eve service the Thursday night before in a barn. I serve a very rural church. And they would put on a nativity and sing the songs and hold the candles, and Santa Claus would be there, and the animals are there, and there's a potluck. It's all of a Protestant Christmas just synthesized down into one evening. So it's a very fun service, and then it takes a lot of the pressure from the stress from Christmas off of the young families who have that whole weekend to themselves. Now you don't have to worry about showing up and listening to me talk for an hour. We've done that. You can travel, you can host, you can take your kids wherever. It's very nice.
So it's not an actual Christmas Eve service. It is
No. It's a nativity, and we celebrate it exactly like you would do a Christmas Eve service if you did it in a barn, but we do it in a barn a few days before Christmas Eve. Because you can just do that.
Because
You can just decide to do that.
while the liturgical calendar is a great tool,
Yes, it is not the law.
it is not the law, right?
What is it?
Ooh.
What, the law was made for man and not man for the law? Or
I don't
the
know
other
what
way
you're
around?
quoting, but I
don't
like
know.
it.
I don't know who said that, but that sounds
Yeah.
really good. So anyway, we have it on that. And imagine, I'm a young pastor looking for a church, off put by churches, and they say, we have this program that we started doing, and it's this nativity before Christmas. And then to put the cherry on top, the people who organize it are the young moms. The young families came together and organized this thing. And I thought, holy mackerel, that's like revolutionary, right? Is
it though?
I think. Oh, I
Okay.
mean, and no. To be fair,
Okay.
it is not. What's revolutionary about it is that the older people like let go and let them. I don't know what that even means. Allowed them to do it, because that's been. It's like the struggle
Stayed
is
out of the way.
the elderly are like, where are the kids? We need to pass this on. And then some kids will show up and they'll be like, we would like to take over. And they go, no. And then they leave. And then they go, Pastor, where did all the young people go? And okay.
Maybe you were still calling them kids when they were 30
Yeah.
and had a mortgage and 3 kids of their
Right,
own.
right.
Maybe that's what happened.
That's probably what happened.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that happened. And they were explaining this to me at the search and call meeting. And I was like, I want this church.
Also, how wise of them to bring that up, because I think a lot of times our local congregations don't realize how big of a tell those things are in the search and call
yeah.
process.
Huge.
Because that conveyed, we are open to trying new things. We are open to allowing the next generation to lead the church in a different direction. Then it's not just, well, we want our next generation to step up, but we want them to be board chair. We want them to be elder
to
moderator.
do
We
the
want them
same
to
thing,
lead in the same way
but
that
just
we
be
have
younger.
been doing for years and years. No, it's we're allowing them to lead and do things that are ministering to them and their families, and trusting that they also have a creative vision for what the church will look like moving forward.
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
is super
There's-
exciting as a pastor, as a
huge.
young pastor especially, that okay, it means you have people that are willing to take on leadership roles. It means so many different things beyond we do this Christmas service in a bar.
Yeah.
You know, like
Just like to even ask the young families what works for you would be huge. But they were like, what works for you will follow your lead. And I just was like, oh my God, that's insane. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so back in October, I was on my people about, okay, we need to start planning for Christmas. Because it does take a lot.
Yeah.
And I got at a board meeting, somebody mentioned, we really like the Christmas Eve service inside of the church. Are we gonna? Does the Nativity now take over the Christmas Eve candlelight service inside of the church? And I can feel my blood pressure starting to rise, and my palms are getting sweaty. And I looked at the board chair and I said, can I have names and addresses of the people who said this? Because I will make this go away. That was my answer. I was like, yeah, it does. It supersedes it. We're not going to do 2 Christmas Eve services for a small congregation. And if you don't like the nativity and you really, like, your soul needs to sit in a church and sing Silent Night with a candle in your hand, you could go to literally any other church in the county.
ooh. Hot take, unpopular opinion. Every church has a traditional candlelight service that they believe is wildly unique,
Oh, absolutely.
and no one does the way that they do.
Nope. Which is insane.
But most of them, as a pastor, as a person who has observed many of these in many different churches and denominations and contexts, most of them are basically the same.
The same damn thing.
You know, you're reading the same stories, you're singing the same
Yeah.
songs. You're gonna end
Yeah.
up by singing Silent Night in a circle, holding a candle.
And then
the difference
I
is
liked
maybe
your
that
candle.
yeah. And it's beautiful. I
It
don't
is.
want to take
Yeah,
away from
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I love it.
But we
I
all do the
love,
same thing.
Yeah, I love it. But it's not unique in the way that we
Yeah,
think it is.
yeah.
And I don't think it necessarily has to be.
No, absolutely not.
And I think that's
absolutely not.
a great opportunity for community services
100%.
that would do so much to take the stress off of local pastors, because the service is basically the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it involves cooperation
Yeah.
and being like, okay, we're okay not having it in our building this year, and we'll go to your building. You know,
Sure.
there's some logistics to figure out in
Or
that.
don't have it in the building. Go have it in a barn.
Or have it
Or in a shed, or I don't know. But guess how we end our nativity?
Silent Night in a Circle.
We do it. We do
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that superseded that.
Yeah.
And wait a second, I forgot where I was going with this. I can edit all of this out.
He can edit all of
My
this out.
brain is just completely farted on me. Oh, okay. I remember when.
There you go. And we're back.
Okay, October. I was on my people about planning this thing, and they're getting together. This is mostly the young moms and some other folks involved in planning this thing. And last Sunday, the Sunday before, I don't really remember which one it was, but they had a planning committee, and I have purposefully taken my hands off of the steering wheel, as I keep saying, taking my hands out of this and letting them do it. And they were planning in the room, conference room across from my office. I sat in my office with the door open. They could come get me if they wanted to. I didn't put my nose in it at all. And I've never felt more of like a pastor than by they're doing everything. And there's also this blue collar guy that you're not doing anything. You're like, why are you not working? Are you working so that you're not working? But no, it's this weird upside down kingdom thing where it's like, they're doing the work. I'm encouraging them to do the work. I'm the spiritual guy across the hall if you need me, but they're doing it. The community's doing it.
Because ultimately, our call as pastors is to empower and motivate the people we come into contact with to do their own ministry, to follow their own call. And I think historically, a lot of damage has been done by pastors that aren't willing to get out of the way or to let their laity do.
Right.
And it's a both and, because we are professional at this. We do know what we're talking about. And as any professional person will tell you, sometimes it is very painful to watch a non-professional do what you are a professional at.
Oh, yes.
And you're just like, oh, just let me help you.
Oh,
Like, just let me
yes.
dive in. But realizing that this new type of service, this new type of thing that isn't for the church the same way a traditional service was. It is for the young families. It's serving this subset of the population and allowing them to craft it for themselves and to be empowered into crafting it for themselves is pretty
Absolutely. Because when pastors end up doing everything in a congregation, what happens is that pastor moves on and then the congregation falls apart. There's nothing there. It was like a balloon that never was really blown up or something. Yeah. And so to be able to let people plan this kind of stuff on their own. I have other clergy friends that are roughly doing the same thing, and we're talking about the anxiety that we feel, because it definitely feels like I want to just grip the wheel and be like, I've done a million nativities and Christmases and everything, and I could just do it for you. But that's not really being a pastor. That's being, I don't know, the Christmas expert. And I'm not the Christmas expert. I'm the encouraging and loving them through it.
Yeah.
That's there was a Lutheran pastor yesterday at my lectionary study, and she said being a pastor is holding someone's hand and kicking them in the ass at the same time. And so it's like I have to hold their hand and encourage them, but I'm not actually doing the thing.
Yeah.
It's like
You've got to let them do their own ministry.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. And that's what it is. Encouraging the church to do ministry, not the pastor doing ministry for the church.
Yeah.
Very backward, upside down Jesus kind of stuff.
I hire you and give you money to do all of my spiritual work for me so that you can then tell me what the answer is.
Yes.
And I can consume.
Yeah.
Church is not an exchange of goods It's not, what did
Goods and services.
It's not, you're not buying your pardon, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel. No.
It's being invited to share the work of, and to do the hard work of being part of a community and do ministry together, and to put all your gifts and talents in a pool and see where the Lord takes you.
Because it's not easy. And one of the best answers I've ever heard to the question of, like, why should I even belong to a church? I can just stay at home and believe in Jesus. And the best answer I've ever heard is that joining a community will call you out on your spiritual bullshit. You will see if you are actually made of the metal that you think you are in your living room when you are put in a committee here, or you're put in a choir there, and you actually have to be with other human beings who are very difficult to be around a lot of the time.
Who are broken and flawed and have problems.
Just like all of us.
That reflect your own problems. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am a big believer in that you can't be a Christian alone.
Yep. No man is an island, as Thomas Merton says.
Yeah. Or, again, just looking at the life and example of Jesus. He could have gone out and done his ministry alone, but does he? No, he chooses disciples and other people that follow him on this and learn from him and are discipled along the way. That's why we use this term now.
Yeah.
There isn't a intentionality in our speech.
Yeah, what if you showed up to church not knowing everything and just went with it and learned and we grew together?
You think Paul knew everything? I mean, Paul thought Paul knew everything.
Right. And clearly his congregations didn't, because he like wrote all these letters that we've...
How dare you?
Yeah, Paul dropping the mic on people. That's the thing.
All right. We've been talking a lot about Christmas and all of those things and all of those trappings. And there's definitely a difference between consumer Christmas, cultural Christmas, if you want to call it that, and like a Christian Christmas. What is your take on Santa Claus, Lorenzo?
My take on Santa Claus?
Yeah.
I have my Santa Claus hat here.
Yeah, just put that right back.
Are we allowed to talk about the reality of Santa Claus, or are we going to...
Hey, isn't part of our tagline unfiltered? You know, here we go.
Yeah, I'll just say. So this is part of my Santa Claus outfit. I have a Santa Claus outfit because I play Santa Claus for my wife's army unit, and I'm playing Santa Claus this.
I thought that sentence was going to end a little earlier than it did.
Yeah. I play Santa Claus with my wife.
We cannot put this on the internet. All right.
Like, why did I ask? How do I feel about Santa Claus?
Yeah.
I don't really have any feelings one way or the other about Santa Claus, though I do call them the cultural myth and mythologies that come out of the Christmas story.
You mean as a pastor, you dig on mythologies, even those that aren't of your own tradition?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Sometimes more.
Yeah,
to
right?
be honest, it gets boring saying the same stories over and over again.
Yeah.
But things like Krampus and those crazy like horror stories about Christmas from the German stuff. I don't know so much about, I guess it's not so much Santa Claus, but like we're part of the German club here in Dayton, and there'll be like the Christkindlmarkt, so they have all these, it's like a European thing, and Santa Claus will be there, but they'll also have Glühwein, like mulled wine, and all kinds of beers that they'll be auctioning off and stuff.
I like the drinks.
I really am. I'm really into German Christmas, because everything else, it usually has some sort of beer involved.
Germans equal beer.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. They like it. Katie Luther was the premier brewer in Germany during the Reformation. I'm just
and
a
she
good
was
Protestant.
Martin's wife, correct?
Yeah. She's really dope. She's actually more impressive to me than Martin Luther, which is a pretty big statement to make.
Yeah.
Check out Katie's stuff.
Yeah.
What
For
about
me,
you?
I have a little bit of a problem with Santa Claus. And part of that comes from me being a parent, and it just feels wrong to lie to my kids about, hey, I worked really hard and spent all this money and time getting you presents, but let's blame it on some like fat guy you have no idea who he is that breaks into our house in the middle of the night. Like, I've got some problems.
I didn't have kids, so I guess I never had to sit and think about it.
Right, because I don't want to have them have the like earth-altering moment of everything is a lie. My parents lied to me. You know, like I don't want to play that. I don't know how we get around it in our house is that all the presents under the tree are from whoever bought them, but the stockings are from Santa, and we put like boring stuff in the stockings. I don't know, Play-Doh, coloring books, stuff like that. Part of that also comes from wanting to have an equity background where if Santa brings Johnny down the street the brand new game station, play station, whatever, that costs hundreds of dollars. Few houses down, John gets a new pair of socks from Santa Claus. Like, it seems unfair that way.
Yeah.
So by having some of the like more, I don't know, boring stuff, for lack of a better term, come from Santa Claus, it on our kids and in our family that is blessed financially in a lot of ways, makes that, I don't know, we're trying to be good. My husband is a public school teacher, so we see a lot of stuff that just isn't fair in our world. So it plays into that. But I also have a problem with Santa Claus because as a Christian, Santa Claus, the myth of Santa Claus has nothing to do with the birth of Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
So trying to hold those both can be really difficult because nobody loves a claymation the way I love a claymation movie.
Yeah.
Like, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Like, those, like, classics I love and I watch with my kids, so I don't want to come across as this super conservative, if it's not about Jesus, war on Christmas type Christian. Yeah. But I'm also, like, I do think Santa is a large part of the commercialization of Christmas that I don't want to play into. So trying to be mindful of what we pass on to our kids and what parts of Christmas we stress. Are we stressing Santa Claus? Are we stressing Jesus's birth? And being intentional with that, especially with young children.
Sure. I like this. I think I'm going to steal all of that when we finally have kids. Because I think this is the first Christmas that I've experienced where I've been like, this has nothing to do with Jesus or the church. Like, why are we doing this one thing as opposed to another thing? Santa Claus is clearly the Santa Claus that we're talking about is a part of the nothing to do with it. There is the like Saint Nicholas, like on December 6th, Saint Nicholas comes and puts candy in your shoes. We don't put candy in our shoes. We just eat candy on December 6th. But we have
I just eat candy all the
time. We have an icon. If you can see, this is Saint Patrick, but we have an icon of Saint Nicholas that we put next to our Advent wreath, and that's like something that we do. Yeah. But Nicholas was a real person from Turkey. So he definitely wasn't like a holly jolly Midwestern white guy, but he was charitable, and that's something to celebrate. But it has nothing to do with like Coca-Cola or the mall Santas or any of that stuff. Yeah, quite problematic when you start like laying out the consumerism in Christmas.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to be in the world but not of the world.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
You know, it's this pull where I don't want my kids to grow up being that weird pastor's kid, and I don't want to be that angry Christian that rages against the world for being the way that the world is. But I do want to be mindful of what I take in and what I pass on. I'm not going to boo-hoo a Santa Claus. I'll get my kid's picture taken with Santa Claus, but we're not going to overplay Santa.
Sure. And it's difficult for me as a pastor to have Advent on one hand, which is all about this preparation, the courage to have hope in really difficult times is what Advent is about. All the lectionary readings are very apocalyptic because we're anticipating the coming of the Messiah.
Spending a lot of time in Isaiah.
Yeah. And then on the other hand, like, we're anticipating the return of Christ, and then of course that means God's free gift of grace to us. So it's free, it's not transactional, but then like the whole season is transaction and consumer and product, and those two things, like, they're oil and water, they don't mix. So how do we hold these two things in tension? It's a very strange time of the year.
So with all that being said, we'll lay it out. I don't know, obviously we're coming at it from a Christocentric churchy church folk point of view, but sorry, I didn't tell you about this ahead of time, so you're just gonna have to off the cuff.
These are my favorite.
What does Christmas mean to you?
The first thing I think of is family. Christmas being honestly, being with my family, which is not something I think I would have said a couple years ago. But boy, is it so nice to get together and to be together and to share in presents with a C and not just like presents. We actually exchange some pretty hefty presents in our family, which is pretty dope, but it's so nice to just be together. And I don't think there's any other time during the liturgical calendar where that's really that emphasized. Not even Easter seems to be like a quick thing. Okay, here comes Easter and it's gone. But Christmas with Advent attached to it, it's like this holly jolly time of the year. That sounds so flippant, but I feel like it gives us an opportunity to be the best of ourselves and to really hold that hope and courage in all of the shit that is the human condition and be excited about life.
Yeah.
So that's all.
Yeah.
How about you?
For me, the wonder that I get from Christmas is it will never cease to amaze me that an omniscient, all-powerful, all-wonderful God would choose to become human, would choose to be enfleshed, to suffer hunger and thirst and I don't know. Jesus had to go through puberty and all of these weird, uncomfortable things that are part of being a human. I think also Christianity is the only religion that I'm aware of in which God chooses to become human and to live a human life. And I think that there's a connection in that and a realness in that to have a God who fully understands us and what it means to live and breathe and work and exist in this world. I don't know. That every time I think of it, it blows my mind. So that is the awe of Christmas for me is, I don't know, sweet baby Jesus, as Ricky Bobby once said.
Yeah. Going along with sweet baby Jesus, not only did God decide to come and have a human experience, but in a world where we're so clung to wealth and power, to come as a baby, as a vulnerable, poor family's baby.
Yeah.
That's...
Let's count the disadvantages. Unwed mother.
Yeah.
Right? Teen mother.
Yep.
Probably young teen.
Yep.
Because of the time and context.
Oh, yes.
Then becomes a refugee. Then comes back, is part of a blended family, he's raised with a stepdad.
Yep. He's got that cousin out in the woods that's in that weird religious cult.
Right. So many things about the way God chooses to interact with us as Jesus make no human sense.
Not at all.
Choosing to undergo an excruciating, painful death when... Again, still an all-powerful being, could have avoided that if he wanted to. It makes no human sense. And I think it underscores this ultimate point that human sense and human knowledge and human understandings of things has to be inherently flawed because God is not playing by any of these rules of wealth, prestige, power, comfort, any of these things. Is purposely going against them at every step possible. Again, the awe that it inspires in me is... Yeah,
and it's such a weird thing to base an entire religion on. There's this guy who was executed by the Romans and hung out with prostitutes and spoke with women. Woo! And none of his friends ever got the point, and then they all left him at his death, and he died alone. That's your God, you know? Except the women. Except the women.
That's what I'm saying.
But you have to think, especially back then, this is your God. You could have picked any of the Pantheon with their muscles and their weapons and their all this crap.
Well, I'm thinking the scene where Hulk's taking Loki and just beating the puny god, right?
Yeah.
Right, but that was the world's reaction to Christ's crucifixion was puny god. Not so godly now.
Man, Christmas got a lot of stuff in it.
But that's Christmas. That's the Christmas that I want to preach, that I want to push to people. But
absolutely,
But
we have to.
But the fat man is more
bread
fun.
and circuses. Give them bread and circuses, and they'll never revolt.
Yeah,
they will. They do. Even during ordinary time, during the summer, They'll come for us. But for right now, we're putting choirs and nativities and what are other Christmas things?
The music at Christmas.
Oh yeah, the music
I
at
love
Christmas
it.
is great.
Give me the classic carols.
Heck
like
yeah.
give me Silent Night on acoustic guitar.
Oh yeah.
I love it. I love this
or
stuff.
the hammer dulcimer. It's like such a gentle.
Oh,
I love that.
Yeah.
Not just because my wife plays it, but because I love it.
Yeah. There's so much that has become part of the tradition of Christmas that really has not too much to do with the root in scripture of Christmas. That is still has beauty, that still has worth, that still has value. Standing in a circle, holding the candle, singing Silent Night is a great moment for unity and is a great moment to hopefully reflect upon what it means to be part of something greater, what it means to be small and puny in a world that is so vast with a God that is so expansive.
Yeah.
So my prayer this holiday season is that my parishioners and just Christians in general think of that as opposed to their shopping list.
Yeah.
That's
I
what
like
I'm
that.
holding on for.
I like that.
But yeah,
Well, do you want to pray us out this time?
I sure will. But first, I wish
I'll take my
all of our
Santa
people
hat
out there a Merry Christmas.
Oh yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody.
A Merry Christmas. A Happy Holiday, if that is what you celebrate
Yeah,
instead.
whatever.
But let's spend a moment in prayer together. Holy and loving God, thank you for joining us here, for allowing us to be joined across space and time through the gift of technology, to just sit with you and to share our wonder, our awe, our admiration for your Son who came down and became flesh with us so that we might one day be saved. Thank you, Lord, for such a gift that we'll never fully understand. Please be with all of us as we travel through this holiday season. It can be a time of highs, it can be a time of lows, time of stress, a time of joy. Allow us to feel all of these things without guilt. Allow us to be compassionate and hold each other gently as we maybe travel through our first holiday season without a loved one. Our prayer today is the same as it always is, God, that you will join us right where we are and journey with us till the end. We pray this in the powerful name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen and amen. Thank you.
Happy holiday.
Happy holiday. Okay, now I gotta take these lights and go put them on the front of my house.
Gotta put them back before Anastasia gets mad
Yeah,
at you.
then you're like, what are you doing?
What'd you do with the decorations?